these are the headlines we're following at this hour. A severe typhoon alert across the Korean peninsula as Khanun makes landfall on the southern coast, bringing heavy rain and strong gusts nationwide as it is projected to pass through the entire country. Meanwhile, thousands have been evacuated and hundreds of flights have been canceled as southeastern regions report flood damage and blackouts amid a high risk of landslides. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un calls for ramping up war preparations in an offensive way ahead of Seoul-Washington joint drills. Good afternoon. Typhoon Khanun has made landfall on the southeast coast of the Korean peninsula this morning, and it is going to pass through the entire nation, bringing heavy rain and strong winds along the way. We go straight over to our Song Eugene. Eugene, now you're in one of the regions forecast to be heavily affected. How's it looking over there?
Yes, hello, Gangwon. I'm currently on the east coast of the country in Samcheok City, Gangwon-do province, and as you can see, a heavy rain as well as strong winds have been pouring down here since very early morning. So with all this relentless rain and wind, I can just say that there's really no point in wearing a raincoat or carrying an umbrella. And this place, currently, trees are wobbling as well as street lights, and because of all of this extreme weather conditions, most stores nearby have closed. And all this, the weather conditions have turned extremely brutal after Typhoon Khanun made its expected landfall in the country this morning. So according to the Korea Meteorological Administration, Typhoon Khanun landed in nearby Gyeonggi City, Gyeongsangnam-do province at around 9:20 a.m. And after reaching the peninsula, it is currently moving upwards and will cut its way through the country. So the entire nation is expected to be under the typhoon's influence by tonight. And during this time, most parts of the country will experience between 100 to 200 millimeters of rain, and in this region, eastern Gangwon-do province particularly, it can receive up to a whopping 600 millimeters of rainfall. And in terms of winds, gusts are expected to reach about 35 meters per second, which is capable to bring down trees as well as derailing trains.
All right, now how is the country responding?
Yes, well, typhoon alerts have been issued nationwide since 7:30 a.m. today, and I can just say that the entire nation is really on high alert because we're expecting heavier rain and stronger winds to persist throughout the day, especially after the typhoon made its expected landfall. And because last year we experienced so much damage from Typhoon Khanun, which took away the lives of 11 people. So thankfully, latest data from the Interior Ministry as of 11 a.m. today shows that no casualties have been reported for the typhoon this year yet. And in response for safety, more than 10,600 people have evacuated from their homes for safety, as well as over 300 flights across the nation being canceled for the day. But it's not just the skies that are being affected by the typhoon. Dozens of sea routes, roads, and hundreds of hiking trails have been closed off since yesterday. And with really safety as the utmost top priority, kindergartens and schools in affected regions are also taking precautionary measures, such as closing down for the entire day, shortening school hours, and switching to online classes. So the nation's Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, during its meeting this morning, ordered heads of local disaster headquarters to really stand by around the clock until the typhoon passes. It also urged that the evacuation of residents who are living in flood or landslide-prone areas should be able to be done immediately once emergency looms. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Kyung-in.
Thank you, Eugene, for the reporting. Do stay safe. And damage has been reported across the southeastern regions, which are among the first areas to be hit. We have our Kim Jong-sil on the line with the latest. Jong-sil, how's the situation at this moment?
No human casualties have been reported so far, but reports of fallen trees and road damage have been made throughout the morning. More than 80 reports have been made to local Changwon and Gyeongnam fire departments in Gyeongsangnam-do province. For instance, in Gyeonggi City in the southeast at 6:19 a.m., bricks fell down from an apartment building, causing damage to the cars parked underneath. No one was hurt. Also in Gyeonggi, a tree fell down in a road in Mundong-dong, causing traffic congestion. In In Changwon City, north of Kaje, multiple drainage problems were reported where water overflowed from the sewer. A car was washed away by the rain at 7:21 a.m. there, but no one was hurt. In Ulsan, a giant rock that's 3 to 4 meters in size has fallen down from the mountain, blocking the traffic. South Korean officials have warned since this morning that the heavy rain has raised the risk of landslides. Busan, on the other hand, also experienced issues from the typhoon this morning. Blackouts in Suyeonggu district were reported just after 4 a.m. today. The blackouts lasted for 5 minutes and power has been restored. Korea Electric Power Corporation officials said they suspect a tree fell on the power line due to strong wind. Because of the extreme wind, Busan is experiencing objects dangerously shaking as well. These include traffic lights, neon signs, and construction objects, so caution is necessary when outdoors. 90 emergency calls were made in Busan as of Thursday, 8 a.m. There has been reports of trees falling down and flooding of coastal roads, and a taxi stop was partly blown over due to the strong wind. Now, experts said since Khanun moves unusually slowly, its influence may stay inland for a longer period of time. So officials advise people to stay indoors and safe. Officials also said it's vital to check the latest information online, on TV or on the radio, and stay in contact with family members and neighbors. Back to you, Kyung-un.
All right, Jung-ju, thank you for the reporting. Now we go over to our weather center where Lee Ji-yeon is following the latest developments of Typhoon Khanun. Ji-yeon, we see typhoon alerts in place nationwide, aren't they?
That's right, Kyung-un. Well, in fact, this is the first typhoon to pass through the inland Korean peninsula ever since the weather observations began in 1951. Typhoon warnings are in place in southern and some of central parts of the country. Then an advisory in the capital area will be upgraded to a warning later in the day as the typhoon continues to move northwards. So there's really no safe place across South Korea.
I see also, unlike other typhoons that have impacted the Korean peninsula, Khanun is expected to bring both powerful wind and torrential rain. Do tell us more about that.
Sure, Kyung-un. Well, previous typhoons have brought less precipitation if there were strong winds and vice versa, but that's not the case this time. The whole country will be drenched by heavy showers, and east of Gangwon-do province will be hit the hardest, getting 100 millimeters an hour of torrential rains, with up to 500 millimeters in the forecast until Saturday. Now, the rest of the country will get 50 to 300 millimeters. Winds will grow stronger as well, blowing at between 50 and 125 kilometers per hour across the Korean peninsula. Southeast coast regions could experience the strongest wind. Well, that's all for now, but I will be back with more at the end of the newscast.
Thank you, Ji-yeon, for that. Now, President Yoon has called for all-out efforts and resources to minimize casualties as Typhoon Khanun makes landfall with heavy rain and strong winds sweeping across the country. According to his spokesperson Lee Do-won on Wednesday, the president called on public authorities to mobilize all available resources to respond stringently to the storm in order to minimize the human impact. Expressing concern about the unusual movement of the typhoon, Yoon called for close cooperation between government bodies and said until the typhoon has passed, public officials on the front line of disaster management must respond to the best of their abilities and with a sense of duty. And during this typhoon, one of top priorities for South Korean authorities is to make sure the participants of the World Scout Jamboree safely continue on with their activities after the evacuation from their camping site earlier this week. As for today, all events and activities will take place indoors. Our Lee Si-hoo tells us more.
South Korea has strengthened preventative measures to ensure the safety of participants of the 25th World Scout Jamboree as the Korean peninsula comes under the influence of Typhoon Khanun. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo called for utmost efforts in ensuring the safety of the tens of thousands of Scout members. For their safety, the Scouts are only doing indoor activities on Thursday.
I asked the regional administration for their cooperation in running indoor activities and to put their best efforts to prevent safety incidents during Scout members' travels to indoor sites.
The nation's Interior Ministry is scaling up preventive patrols to spot potential hazards such as flooding, landslides, and rockfalls near accommodation sites for participants that are spread around the country. If the accommodation is likely to be directly impacted by the typhoon, the government will share real-time disaster information with the World Organization of Scout Movements. It will also inform the Scout members of the weather situation and give them emergency instructions. All Scouts had left the Saemangeum campsite by Tuesday evening and were placed in accommodation across the country. Since Wednesday, the Scouts have been engaging in activities prepared by regional administrations. The activities include watching and taking part in a dance performance by the Han River, a visit to Hwasong Fortress, a World Heritage Site in Gyeonggi-do Province, and playing Korean traditional farm music or Pungmulnori in Jeollabuk-do Province. Meanwhile, the government has deployed 130 officials to provide safety and medical support at the accommodation sites and 180 officials to offer translation services. The police and fire agencies are also on standby to ensure safety during activities. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
And now here we have a group of young Spanish Scout members who have now resettled in the city of Paju and living bittersweet moments in Saemangeum. They're now enjoying themselves in the new adventures in Paju. Our Choi Soo-hyung has their story.
The 25th Saemangeum World Scout Jamboree has entered a new phase. Following their early departure from the Saemangeum campsite on Tuesday, Scouts have been enjoying experiences all over the country. On Wednesday, a team of 123 people from Spain visited the National Folk Museum of Korea in Paju, Gyeonggi-do Province, as part of their revised Jamboree program. Most of the Spanish Scouts mentioned that, although they were quite tired, taking part in various activities was better than simply staying in hotels and doing nothing.
I'm sad because I can't go with other countries, and that was the point of the Jamboree. But you know, we're happy because we're doing other activities. Here is just one choice, but it's okay. It's so nice that they could give us the choice to still doing activities and not just stay in the hotels doing nothing.
One of the team members mentioned that a small night concert with other countries during the first week was his most memorable moment.
I think that the first week it was a nice experience. My favorite experience was at night that they make like a little concert and we go with people of other parts of the world and we start like dancing different songs. We could ask the DJ to play different songs and we learn like other culture songs.
Despite the long journey to their new accommodation from the Saemangeum campsite, they expressed their gratitude to Korea for its hospitality.
I really liked seeing the big signs with the Korean letters in the streets, like on the buildings and stuff. I didn't expect them to be that nice, but you're also really nice people. You're always there to help us, so I had a good time at Seoul.
The team later said that while it's true the Saemangeum campsite was hot and many issues arose all at once, they viewed the Jamboree from a different perspective.
Everything that I saw like in the press was very different as what I was seeing inside. People got used to it. We were doing the normal activities and everything. When we spoke with other leaders inside the Jamboree, they also had different realities and they also didn't experience as many problems as we were seeing in newspapers or in TV.
The Scouts will continue their experiences nationwide until the end of the Jamboree on Saturday. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News, Paju.
The top officials from South Korea and the United States have agreed to close cooperation for next week's trilateral summit between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. The Foreign Ministry on Thursday said Foreign Minister Park Jin held phone talks with his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken on Wednesday, where they discussed the upcoming summit. They agreed that the summit is a historic turning point for the three countries. Park said he expects strengthened trilateral cooperation over North Korea's security issues, as well as on the economy and person-to-person exchanges. The first ever standalone trilateral summit involving the three countries will take place at Camp David, the U.S. president's country retreat, on August 18th. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called for ramping up war preparations, escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula ahead of the Seoul-Washington joint drills set for later this month. Lee Seung-jae reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called on his regime to prepare for a possible war in an offensive manner. According to North Korea's Korean Central News Agency on Thursday, the statement was made at an enlarged meeting of the Central Military Commission of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea on Wednesday. During the meeting, Kim stressed the importance of a strong army to carry out the party's Central Committee's military strategy, while also calling on the regime to secure more powerful strike means for carrying out the mission of war deterrence and intensifying the work for deploying them in the units for action in a mobile way. During the meeting, Kim also replaced his top general Park Soo-il with Lee Young-gil, who was previously appointed as a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission in January 2023. The KCNA also mentioned other items discussed at the meeting. They include talks on a military parade on September 9th to mark the regime's 75th founding anniversary, also known as the Day of the Foundation of the Republic. It could also mark an opportunity for Kim Jong-un to showcase the North's military weapons amid the growing tensions on the Korean peninsula. Wednesday's meeting came as South Korea and the United States plan to hold their annual Urchi Freedom Shield exercise later this month. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Korea Development Institute has maintained its forecast for South Korea's economic growth for this year at 1.5% amid signs of recovery in exports. Releasing its revised forecast on Thursday, the KDI has also kept the country's economic growth for 2024 same at 2.3%. The think tank cited the slight recovery in exports of cars and chips as the reason for maintaining its growth estimates for both years. As for consumer inflation, it has adjusted its forecast for this year to 3.5%, up from 3.4% due to the rise in international oil prices. Youth employment took a downturn in July after 29 months of increases, with the number of economically inactive youths on the rise. According to Statistics Korea, the employment rate for people in their 20s saw an on-year decrease of 0.1 percentage points to 61.4%. Youth employment had been increasing by 3 to 4 percentage points from the end of 2021. However, the pace slowed sharply to 1% this year before turning negative last month. Fewer jobs in the wholesale and warehouse sector and the base effect from last year also added to the low youth employment figures. Bus fares in Seoul will see an increase from this Saturday, August 12th. The basic bus fare for an adult in Seoul will rise by 300 won to 1,500 won, or roughly $1.15. It is the first time public transportation fares in the capital have been raised since June 2015. Fares for intercity buses will increase by 700 won to 3,000 won, which is around $2.30. Night bus fares will rise 350 won to 2,500 won, or just under $2. Subway fares are also set to be adjusted starting from October 7th, rising by 150 won to 1,400 won.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Hawaii, at least 6 people died in wildfires on the island of Maui on Wednesday. The death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue operations continue. According to officials, hundreds of people lost their homes and thousands more have been forced to evacuate as fires raged on Maui and neighboring Big Island. The U.S. Coast Guard also rescued 12 people who jumped into the sea to avoid flames that destroyed much of the town of Lahaina. Thousands in Hawaii are without power and mobile phone service due to infrastructure damage. The cause of the wildfires is still unknown, but they broke out amid prolonged dry conditions and were fanned by winds from Hurricane Dora. In Russia, at least one person has been killed and at least 60 wounded on Wednesday in a massive blast at a Russian military optics plant less than 80 kilometers from Moscow. Rescue teams are searching through the rubble over concerns some may still be trapped. The explosion at the Zagorsk optical and mechanical plant reportedly originated from a pyrotechnics warehouse on site that was rented by a third company. The plant is responsible for manufacturing optical devices such as night vision equipment and binoculars for the Russian military. The cause of the explosion is still unclear, and a criminal investigation has been opened. Coup leaders in Niger on Wednesday accused France of breaching a ban on its airspace put in place on Sunday. The regime claims that a French aircraft took off from neighboring Chad and then crossed over into Niger. It then allegedly cut off all contact with local air traffic control. The military takeover leaders also accused France of freeing 16 captured extremists who allegedly planned to attack Nigerian military positions along its border. France has rejected both accusations. It said that the flight was authorized by and coordinated with Niger's armed forces, and that no extremists have been freed. France has 1,500 troops in the country to combat extremists. And finally, representatives from 8 Amazon countries, including Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador, wrapped up a 2-day Amazon summit in the Brazilian city of Belém on Tuesday. It was the first such summit of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization in 14 years. Despite agreeing on a list of unified environmental measures to bolster regional cooperation, they failed to reach a consensus on a deforestation pact proposed by Brazilian President Lula da Silva. He had sought to end deforestation by 2030. Instead, the summit concluded with a promised alliance to fight forest destruction, but that members would be free to tackle deforestation goals individually. Climate activists have said the deal falls short at a time when the world is seeing record temperatures. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After Typhoon Khanun made landfall on Jeju Island off the southeast coast this morning at 9:20 a.m., it's moving at a slow pace of 20 kilometers per hour over the Korean peninsula. It will continue to sweep over land and will hit Chungcheong-do provinces late this afternoon. Then it will arrive in the capital area tonight. Rain is pounding down in most parts of the country and will pick up as the day goes on. East of Gangwon-do province is forecast to see 100 millimeters an hour of torrential rain with up to 500 millimeters in the forecast. Now, Khanun is expected to bring both powerful wind and torrential rain. Winds will pick up, blowing at between 50 and 125 kilometers per hour across the Korean peninsula. Southeast coast regions could experience wind as fast as 145 kilometers per hour. Please stay inside and safe. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Now let's get another check on Typhoon Khanun. This is the live footage we're getting at this hour, and Typhoon Khanun is mainly affecting the southern region. But Khanun is set to pass through the whole of the Korean peninsula, straight across from south to north and between east and west, possibly becoming the first ever typhoon to have such a path. Well, back in 2002, there was Typhoon Rusa that swept across the whole of Korea in a slightly tilted path. That caused 213 deaths and a record $40 billion of damage. The massive scale of devastation was also because of its slow pace, having a longer influence. And that's also the case for Khanun, which is why we need to stay alert. Well, that is all for today. Thanks for watching.